Good.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the August 9th Metropolitan School District of North Florida monthly board meeting. We'll open the meeting by joining me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first item of the night on the agenda is patrons' concern, and it looks like we have a couple people signed up, so we will just kind of go over the ground rules. We typically allot 3 minutes for discussion, and we just ask that you not use individual names and get into HR issues that we can't address in an open meeting. Other than that, Lance Beaker is first. You have the floor, sir.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm gonna stand up or something.
You do whatever you do. You can come sit in this chair if you want.
I just want to express concern. I know with this with the COVID issue, I mean, it's so hotly debated among everybody. Everybody's got their opinion, and unfortunately, I think a lot of us find ourselves just trying to seek facts about it. You know, and even facts are hard to find. And facts, what some people think they find as facts, are censored immediately on social media, and then you try to figure out if they're factual or not, and you can almost find that they are or aren't, and then they, all these independent fact checkers. So anyways, I really tried to do my own research on this, not just for my own family and myself, but just in general. When I saw our current suggestion, I think, unless it's changed since I saw it, we were talking about a vaccinated kid would not have to quarantine if they came in contact with somebody where a unvaccinated child would have to. Is that correct? For 14 days?
Yeah.
Okay. So that just led me kind of just on somewhat of a research deal. So I went to CDC's website, and when I was in Texas for a meeting a week ago, it said that they came out with a publication on their website that said, regardless of vaccination status, they recommend that everybody wear a mask, basically. And that was made, the decision was made based on data available at the time. And the reason was that on their morbidity and mortality weekly report, it demonstrated that Delta infection specifically resulted in similarly high viral loads in vaccinated and unvaccinated people, and high viral loads suggest an increased risk of transmission and raise concern that, unlike with other variants, vaccinated people infected with Delta can transmit the virus. And so obviously the CDC found that concerning and said, we need to look at this and start having people mask up. And it really doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not, you can still get it, carry it, and transmit it to others. And so that was where I thought, well, I need to look into this a little more. So a few days later after that, I think it was July 30th, I think it was, this one came out. I couldn't print the whole thing because it wouldn't print right for me, but this basically says that, we've got basically 4 variations of the virus now, Delta being the most recent, and this graph, again, on CDC's website, says that there's 93% is the Delta virus in total. So I'm not a virologist, nor would pretend to be, but I would have to say, based on the information, 93% of it's Delta variant, and we created the vaccine based off of the Alpha or the Beta or whatever it was. Obviously, this Delta is pretty new. So is a vaccine even effective towards it? And there's debate on that at this point in time. There's no solid data that I can really find to say I'm right or wrong personally, and I look pretty hard for it. So if somebody has that, I'd like to see it, but I personally couldn't find it. And then going on from there, again, CDC's website as well. I don't know if you've seen that Barnstable County, Massachusetts deal, where they had tracked 469 COVID cases that were identified among residents that had traveled to the town July 3rd through the 17th. And of those 346 of them, 74% occurred to be, that tested positive were from fully vaccinated people. And the testing identified the Delta variant was in 90% of the specimens. So the cycle threshold, which I read a little bit about that, and I guess whenever you test for COVID and things, the way you swab your nose is basically like how many cycles it takes for the testing to pick it up. And so there were similar cycle threshold values were found in specimens from patients who were fully vaccinated and those who were not. So I can share these articles with you guys if you want to read in more detail. I know my 3 minutes will go by pretty quick here if it hasn't already. But of all those people, the only other thing I highlighted here was that 5 of them were hospitalized and no deaths were reported. One hospitalized patient was age 50 to 59 and was not vaccinated and had multiple underlying medical conditions. And then 4 additional patients aged 20 to 70 were also hospitalized, 2 of whom had underlying medical conditions. So my reason I'm bringing it all up is I don't want to get into the debate of it. My concern is if we're going to differentiate between students ultimately at the school board, what I want to bring up about is I don't know that I feel, based on what I've read, that it's fair to say to a family that chooses not to get vaccinated. I think we need to let them have their opinion, whether you want to be vaccinated or not. You got to make the decision that's best for your family. And if we say that we're going to make you quarantine if you're not vaccinated, I don't know if there's enough clinical data to support that I see. And so I would just ask you as a board that you consider that carefully as we move towards the school year starting here, because, for an unvaccinated child, I think it'd be a shame if they were, a senior and missed out on their last things they got to do, or a freshman and it was their first things they got to do. Or for your elementary kids where they're trying to learn to speak and their, phonetics and trying to, use their mouth and express themselves with their face and smile and interact. I think there's a whole lot of issues that come with this that are probably long lasting. And I'm not saying you don't carefully consider it. I just was doing some of my own research and I wanted to come and express my concern about it. So I just would ask that you carefully examine whether or not it's necessary to at least make it equal to where, vaccinated or not, if we can't prove that it makes a massive difference and that if both parties can transmit it and they can get it and they can carry it, I don't know that it makes any sense to differentiate whether or not we quarantine them. And if you have the power as a board and a school corporation, I would encourage us to even look at not doing any of it, frankly, but that may be something we can't decide because of state rules. I don't know that answer, but.
Your 3 minutes is definitely up now.
That was my last statement.
All valid points, and I don't think there's anybody in here that's not toiling with the same things. Unfortunately, this is a fluid, ever-changing issue, and I think we're gonna have an update from Mike and talk a little bit here. So I welcome you to stay and appreciate you willing to come and share your thoughts and concerns.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
What is your name? I don't think
I'm sorry, I didn't state that at the beginning. Lance Beaker.
See, we just assume everybody knew me, Larry. I'm sorry.
I don't know anybody. I don't know anything.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's all right. Melissa, Alexander, you're next.
Yeah.
And I apologize, but so our policy is that we have to make sure that only folks within the district is who we give podium
Lakeville,
to.
Indiana.
And you didn't put it on the address, and I didn't know
Well,
it.
it's a
So
temporary address, so I'm in the process of moving.
it doesn't
I go
matter.
to, my kid goes to South Paris.
And it's Wadeville, you said?
Yes.
Okay. That's good enough.
So I was just going to piggyback off of Mr. Lance's
Beaker.
Beaker. Basically, I'm very disappointed in our school district and the fact that if you just look at the policy, and I do know that Mr. Gottman is going to address this, but I think just the one thing, not even looking at the policy regarding quarantine and vaccines, it should just flare at you that it's discrimination between our students. And I don't think that our students should be used like that as some kind of instrument for some kind of political movement. I mean, what kind of standard are you setting for our kids if that's what you're going to do is treat our kids differently based on something? So that was my first point. And second, also kind of piggyback off what he said, I think that the whole policy should be looked at and just, what are we going to do to our schools and our communities? We can't just keep going on like this. Our students went through this last year. They can't be missing these days of school. They're going to suffer. And this will go over the 3 minutes, but this is from a school board meeting in Indiana. Interesting enough, it's from Mount Vernon, but it's Fortville, Indiana. It's a different county. But it's a doctor. It's a medical doctor.
5777 West 7 North McCourtsville, Indiana. To address your comment, gee, it's hard to believe we're 18 months into this and still having a problem. And I would suggest the reason we still have a problem is because we're doing things that are not useful.
Can I
and
just,
we're getting our sources
Right.
of information.
I don't want to impose on you, but we all can see that video
Okay.
and probably have.
Do you
So
have
just
it? Okay.
in interest of time.
I would just make like a record that I would like for everybody to listen to that.
Yes.
And if I can facilitate in getting that data, I would be more than happy to, just so the school board has something scientific to look at also.
Sure.
Is that something that's needed, or?
Well, go ahead.
I saw the video myself. I watched it this morning because somebody had sent it to me.
Great.
We have all that data, and like I've shared with you on the telephone a few days ago, everything is entering into my decisions, and we're looking at some possibilities of changing what the policies have. And like Lance said, where those policies came from was from the CDC. And my biggest concern is exactly what you're saying, that I feel like it is pitting kids against kids. We as an organization are here to treat everyone equally. I think that's in my opinion, that's the one thing that public education should be for, is that everything is treated equally. So we have been talking about the policies that have been recommended to us, and whether we need to go back and change those to make sure that they are fair to all students, not just to vaccinated or unvaccinated.
Okay, well, in regards to the whole policy, if you guys are worried about things, we sign releases all the time. That's one of the main things, like our kids can die at school, going to school, just playing on the playground. I don't think it's any different. So I don't think, if we don't start changing things in our communities here, and we're relying on some big government, we're gonna fail our whole country. And I just think that's wrong. So, thank you.
I would like to just make a couple points.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you coming in, truly. We value your input. I wish you'd change the word from disappointed with the school system to something else, because last year, if you go by what we did as a school corporation, was unique to almost anybody else in Southern Indiana, in the fact that our kids had prom, our kids had snowball.
Okay.
No,
I'm not talking about last year. I don't think anybody can address anything. I'm not comparing it to last year
Sure,
at all. I just think going forward, I think we're done doing this, and I think we need to do something.
But I think that
different.
lays the groundwork for what we tried to do last year, and we didn't just follow in with what everybody else did.
But we're gonna do it this year.
Nobody has said that. We haven't even started school
Well,
yet.
I thought we're not supposed to be argumentative about things, and I feel like you are attacking me about things, and I am disappointed because the policy is, you guys should have recognized that right up front, that treating the kids differently, okay? And I'm just asking you, that's what I'm disappointed about, that you guys should have seen that and addressed that immediately before parents had to come in here and talk to you about it. Okay? Thank
Fair
you.
enough.
I didn't sign up, but could I just address a couple of things? Or is that inappropriate?
I don't think it's inappropriate.
We typically don't allow
That's fine.
interactions, but if you want to make a comment, that would be fine.
Okay. You brought up some of the issues with the vaccine stuff. I just thought it would be worth noting. I think it's actually mentioned in that video that you were about to show. The vaccines also, you may already know this, but the vaccines are actually used to teach your body how to attack it, and they don't prevent infection. And that's why when you do, I started nervous, that's why I didn't want to sleep. But when you get the vaccine, it's basically teaching your body to attack those viral cells and everything. It's not necessarily preventing the infection. It's lessening the effects of the infection itself. So you're not experiencing all of the side effects. Not side effects, but symptoms, I suppose, would be a more appropriate word. But yeah, sorry, I just that's all I wanted to add. I just to address that. I don't know, you may already know that, but.
I sure appreciate it. And I think we're due for more conversation in the report section. Is that right? Next up on the agenda is the minutes, claim docket, consent items that were issued to everybody ahead of time from our previous meeting on July 12th. Entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the consent items as listed.
Second.
I'll second.
So a motion by Mr. Schmidt and seconded by Mrs. Will.
Mr. President, I do want to add some additional things to the consent agenda item. First of all, we have a resignation from Kayla Sanford for the North Elementary School girls basketball coach. She's going to be hopefully taking on the JV coaching position at North Posey High School. And then also Mrs. Audrey Wilson, the language arts teacher, 7th grade language arts teacher at North Posey Junior High School, is submitting her resignation effective August the 5th. And then for recommendations, Mrs. Smith is recommending Mindy Brandenstein to the kitchen manager position at the junior high and high school. Mr. Fisher is recommending Kayla Sanford for the position of special education and life skills room for the junior high and the high school. Mr. Fisher is also recommending Mrs. Gayla Shapker as a long-term substitute teaching position in special education at the high school. And then for ECA recommendations, the assistant athletic director is being recommended as Miss Michelle Parrish, yearbook sponsor Thomas Seymour, HOSA 50% Natalie McCullough, junior class sponsor Heather Moreland, history club Mark Kirkman, and JV girls basketball coach is Kayla Sanford. And then Mrs. McMunn is recommending Amy Stevens as a long-term sub in one of the special education classrooms until Haley Elpers returns from maternity leave. So we bring forward those extra walk-ons for this evening. Do you have anything else? Okay. So just wanted to make sure.
I will say that I did not get all those, so you can.
Amy's got you covered.
Yeah.
Welcome to the August meeting of the school.
Yes, yeah, I'm trying to get everybody in for tomorrow morning.
It's a very fluid moving deal. And just for those listening at home, Thomas Seymour is Rusty Seymour, as most everybody would know him as. And Kayla's going to be the girls JV coach?
Girls JV coach, correct.
And we still don't have a boys JV coach, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And also, Mr. President, we wanted to recognize Dr. Scott Streeter is resigning from the high school principal's position. We want to wish Scott the best. He has accepted a position with Jostens as a sales representative for them. We truly appreciate his 18 years of service to North Posey School District and wish him the best in his future endeavors.
Absolutely. So again, we have a first and a second. Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Do we need to restate the motion?
I sure hope not.
No. Okay.
You're more than welcome.
I was wanting to confirm.
We can restate it as the motion is to approve the consent item, claims items, consent agenda with the additions as presented by Mr. Galvin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. New business, sir.
This evening, we are on the second reading of the electronic participation by school board members in school board meetings. As you know, this came about because of COVID. And so Mr. Oakley submitted a kind of a little bit of a alternative option. So I put both options in there for this evening for you to read. And what I did on the first option is I highlighted the changes and the differences between the second option. So in the first one, death of a relative or an emergency involving actual or threatened injury to persons or property. We just kind of went back to like all illness or other medical condition was also taken out. We just went back to military service in an emergency involving actual or threatened injury in the second one. And I believe that was about it.
So we will entertain a motion for one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Well, I would make a motion for the second one, of course.
And clarify that the difference.
The only difference is C and D, or
Actually, should be B and C.
yes, B and C are omitted in the second version. And I can give reason if you'd like.
So when you're just thinking if
hold
we're
on.
sick or something, you're probably.
I would
just gonna
rather
skip the
you worry
meeting.
about being sick or worry about your relative. Attendance isn't really an issue for us anyway.
Right.
So.
And I think the one thing that I want to encourage And that's why I put it in the very first paragraph, is that you've been voted on by constituents within our community to be here and to represent them. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is that we have a very good attendance policy for attendance from you guys. And I appreciate that as a taxpayer in this community. So, but I think that this is definitely just, it's an opportunity that if something comes up, that you have that opportunity.
Right. I just want to throw something other because it's something I'm dealing with at work. So what if somebody, like one of us have like you, well, no, I'm not gonna say that. Somebody has something where maybe they need to be out for like a 6-month period of time. Like it's that kind of an illness, but we still want them to be able, and I know that's completely going against our policy. We'd have to do some sort of a,
Neither one of
exception.
those would.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I just
Were you
want
wishing something ill will to me?
I know, I was not.
In all honesty, both of these policies are much better than what our county officials are
Right.
considering.
Right.
So,
All right, so again, the one you're recommending is what's shown on the board.
that one,
Right.
yes.
So like I said, there's not that much difference except for those two others. And then it's actually B and C, not C and D.
And I can agree to that, so I'll go ahead and second the motion.
All right, so we have a first by Mr. Oakley and seconded by Mr. Schmidt,
For option
And
number
it's-
2.
and it's for option number 2.
Mhm.
Any comments or questions regarding that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Option 2 it is.
Next up this evening, Mr. President, you have a proposal for a contract with Curriculum Associates for Toolbox. This is a teacher materials or teacher support for iReady, which is what we do with our benchmarks K through 8. And so we are proposing to pay for this from our ESSER 3 funds, the price of $5,610. And so we bring this forward for your consideration this evening.
Entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the contract to include Toolbox for our teachers in iReady.
Second.
I'll second that.
So we have a first for Mr. Conway, a second from Mr. Schmidt to approve the contracts for iReady as presented by Mr. Galvin. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Next up this evening, you have a proposal there from Mrs. Smith. As you know, you approved the USDA waiver allowing our students to receive free breakfasts and lunches this year. Because of that, the Department of Education required us to increase our adult prices. And so the new adult price for this coming year will be $2.47 for breakfast and $4.57 for lunch. So we're bringing that forward this evening for you to approve those price increases. As I stated, that was a requirement from the DOE in order to get that USDA waiver passed.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the request from the food service to increase the adult prices.
Second.
I'll second it.
So the motion by Mrs. Will, seconded by Mr. Colley to approve the food service increases for adult prices as presented by Mr. Galvin. Any other comments or questions?
How much of an increase was that? I mean, I
I don't remember that.
I eat lunch here a lot. I just wondered how much more money I need to
I'm
come
not,
up
it was
with.
less than 50 cents. I'm not 100% either. I'd have to look at my notes, but.
That's okay. I was just,
Any other comments or questions?
Um,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
we'll do that, we'll have that in. Yeah. This evening, we were presented with 2 RFPs for architectural firms to begin working with us on the 2024 bond projects. So we bring those forward this evening for consideration. Those the 2 companies that provided Proposals was Hafer Associates from Evansville and Lancer plus BB from Indianapolis. So
I'd make a motion when we table that for tonight. This is early in the process, maybe we can get some more information on it.
All right, so we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
So a motion to table by Mr. Oakley, seconded by Mr. Schmidt. Any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. So we'll table that and hopefully address that next month.
Yep. Okay. So Michelle pointed out, the last paragraph of Mrs. Smith there said that she was wanting to increase the extra entree with meal price, purchase an entree only by 25 cents. So these are like the a la carte items is what they are. So we would need approval for that, to increase that.
And that does not fall under the free
Correct,
lunch
it does not.
waiver that.
So this is like, for example, when my son needs to buy extra food and it costs me more money.
Which is why people make the comment that, hey, if it's free, how come I'm still putting money into the lunch account?
So kids are still permitted to buy extra items. For example, they may get a bottle of water instead of getting the milk or something like that. And so those kinds of items cost additional money. So that would be a walk-on this evening, Mr. President, to do that, because that wasn't listed on the agenda.
All right, so we need to entertain a motion to approve the additional increase of 25 cents for the entrees as requested or as presented by Mr. Galvin.
And I apologize that I missed that.
That's why Michelle's here, she catches that.
That's right. That's right.
I'll make that motion.
Entertain a second.
I'll second it. I thought we were just adding it to the other one. I guess we already voted.
Yeah, we already voted, so we have to do it separate. All right, so we have a first by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Colley to approve the increase on the a la carte items as presented by Mr. Galvin. Any other comments or questions?
So the only reason we're doing this is to make the regular entree more appealing.
Mhm.
The meal, not necessarily the entree, but the meal as a whole, which allows the child to also have vegetables and fruit.
Okay.
So that's, the meal is a reimbursable item, which they can choose up to 5 things in that meal. It's the entree, the main dish, they have to get a vegetable, they have to get a fruit. They can have up to 2 other items with that meal as a reimbursable item. Sometimes kids like to just get the pizza or the hamburger, and that is an a la carte item by itself, and it's not reimbursable by the state because it doesn't include the fruit and the vegetable. So the state's suggestion is that you increase slightly your a la carte or entree only item to encourage students to also have their fruits and vegetables.
Whether they eat it or not. You
I
can't make
wonder
them.
how many of the
They don't eat
students
it.
are really looking at the cost of this
They're
and making a decision. on it.
Right.
It's just gonna hit our pocketbook.
Right.
Hopefully mom and dad is suggesting.
Yeah, but it's outside or out of mind. I mean, the kids are gonna make their own decision.
A lot of times, these kinds of things are recommended from our food service. So, I mean, it's not Stacy, it's that the representative from the DOE said, hey, we recommend that you do this, in order to offset those costs and stuff like that. So we try to keep our food prices as low as we possibly can. And this would not be coming from Aramark, this would be coming from the DOE.
And this was a recommendation from the state, and their statement was to encourage the full meal.
So free and reduced, well, how does that impact them? It would be, it would be out of pocket expense, because theirs is only for the entree, it's not for the a la carte.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Same as the labor.
So if they did 3 items, we're talking 75 cents a day. Right? What's typically an a la carte?
$2.
So if you get if you get just like say you just get an entree by itself, just a hamburger, or just a, the hot meal, just by itself, and that's the $2. Whereas your a la carte items are often, they can range in different prices. It might be I don't even know what's over there necessarily, granola bar, or extra drink,
Fruit snacks is what my kid bought all the time.
Bottled waters.
Bottled water.
Very
Rice
popular.
Krispie, water, fruit juice, I think is in there.
That's what I'm trying to think. What does a normal kid get? Do they get just one a la carte item extra, or do they get 3? What does that?
They're only proposing an increase on just the extra entree.
Oh, so it's not for all.
It's not all the a la
pizza
carte,
or
it's just the
hamburger.
extra. So like I go through the line and I get my meal, but I want a second slice of pizza, that second slice is gonna be the $2. Or if I'm just going through and just getting the entree with not the meal, then it's $2.
So it's like for our boys, they might buy 2 pieces of pizza or 3 pieces of pizza, so we're gonna pay.
I got one in there
Don't they have pizza a la carte though? I mean, I know it's part of the meal sometimes, but don't they usually have pizza that you go
too.
get?
You can make it a meal. Yeah, you can add in your other items.
So we're looking for a second, so.
We have a second.
Oh.
We're in discussion,
I'm sorry,
question
who
phase.
seconded it? I did not.
Yeah.
Oh,
Larry
I
did.
thought, I
So-
thought you made the motion.
No,
I made-
Greg made the
You made
first.
the motion, sorry, I missed that.
So I guess back to my original question, to the normal kid that goes through the line, is this a 25-cent impact per day, or is this a 75-cent impact per day?
I think it's 25 seconds.
Unless they're getting 3 extra slices of pizza.
Okay. What happens if we don't do this?
I don't know either. I've never had that happen.
Is this a recommendation or is it a requirement from the DOE?
It is a recommendation.
Yeah, that's a key word.
It's probably just a recommendation because direction from the state is to make the prices higher to make the full meal a better option than a la carte items.
We can run data for the first 6 to 9 weeks, however long you like, for us to look at it and bring back some data on our usage. If that would be something you wanted to see.
I mean, I hate to sit here and discuss 15, 20 minutes on a 25-cent item,
Yeah.
but I also don't want to impact.
Right. But I also hate you all to waste your time to
Yeah.
run data on it for that long. Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, if it's not, if our costs aren't going up, if it's not costing us any more as a school than what it is now, I'm reluctant to penalize kids just because they want a piece of pizza. But if our costs are going up, I definitely don't want to eat those costs if it's an increase.
What would happen if we tabled this just to answer that question until next month?
Not
Well,
that big of a deal.
I mean, we can't, other than the fact that
We
we
can
would
vote
start
it down.
school with prices as is with a
Yeah.
potential increase mid-school.
But potentially it's not an increase that's gonna hit everyone. It's a choice-based increase.
You said it's not gonna change whether your kids buy stuff or not, probably.
Probably not.
I don't think the kids are gonna make the decision. Kids are gonna get what the heck they want.
Yeah.
They don't care whether it's 25 cents or 50 cents or a
I
dollar.
don't see this making any difference.
We are going to be making, that's what's gonna have the impact. So mine gets back to more Amy's question, is this a requirement or is this a recommendation? If it's a recommendation and we're not negatively impacted by the corporation by keeping prices where they are, I lean toward that. But we've beat a 25-cent item pretty to death.
What happens if we vote this in and then run the data and we find out 8 months later or 6 months later that we want to walk it back? I mean, is that?
I'm sure we have the ability to lower prices just as well.
It's not gonna hurt anything for us to look at it. If you're uncomfortable with raising the price, we'll bring it back next month if it's.
This one, we already have a motion
Yeah,
and a
we-
second.
we have to
Motion
vote on
and a
it.
second.
Yeah.
Well, it could be retracted.
Well, we have to vote on it. We have two motions. But that doesn't prevent us from discussing it.
Bringing it back up again a month later.
So if there are no, is there any other comments or discussions, and I'll call for a vote. So we have a motion by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Colley, to approve the 25-cent increase. All in favor say aye. All opposed say same sign. Aye. All right, so since we had a walk-on, and based on the discussion that I heard that somebody may want to make a motion to revisit this in a month with some additional data.
Right.
Does anybody want to make that motion?
I will make that motion. I like that.
I'll second that one.
That's the engineer in you.
Yep.
All right. So we have a motion by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Colley, to revisit this next month with additional data. Any comments or questions for that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
We'll do that for you.
I promise you, we will not send you chasing 25-cent items the rest of the year.
Okay. Hey, it was gonna save me a little bit too for that 15-year-old that eats.
Yep.
Oh, that was something else.
Yeah, I was saying that,
Yep.
I just remembered you put that in there, that's just for the adult prices.
All right, you have in front of you this evening your, an informational kind of, presentation about this year's budget, or 2022 budget. And I'm just gonna kind of go through that a little bit. First off, HEA 1009 buckets. This was kind of, a few years ago, you probably remember that everything changed. So mainly we have 4 funds now. We have the education fund, which mainly is comprised of what used to be called the general fund. This is mainly used for all expenses connected with instruction, salaries, fringe benefits, special education supplies, professional development, also known as categories 1 and 2. Now, we as a corporation are permitted to transfer up to 15% from the education fund to the operations fund because of when these 2 funds were created. Some items were moved over there. For example, all of central office staff is now in the operations budget, whereas used to the superintendent, the assistant superintendent was in the education fund. All the custodial staff used to be in the education fund, and now they're in the operations fund. So therefore, we are allowed to transfer up to 15% from education operations. Operations mainly takes care of exactly what we say. It takes care of all the operations of the district. It incorporates what used to be the capital projects fund, transportation fund, and bus replacement fund. And we also have the debt service, which covers all of our lease bond payments, also unreimbursed textbooks. And then we have, of course, the rainy day fund, which is kind of what I always say is our savings account, more or less, for those rainy days. The next page there, you have what is our estimated property tax cap for 2022. And this is money that the district loses. And of course, this is continuing, this is on an annual basis. So about this much, and it continues to go up a little bit. You can kind of see the financial impact there, and usually it impacts our property tax supported funds, which is your operations fund and your debt service fund. And so as a district this year, we'll be losing $71,046.27 due to property taxes in that property tax cap. So just kind of be aware of that. That, yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot, but yet over a period of time, it becomes a sizable chunk of money that we are losing as a district.
And that property tax cap is based off of what we would have got had there not been the 321 cap in place.
Correct.
But since there is the 321 in place, this is the difference.
Yeah. And so that is set. So keep in mind, like, for example, if the library would suddenly decide that they're going to do a new, building project or something like that, that impacts us. And so it's always important for all of our different groups to be talking to each other to kind of say, well, how is this going to impact us and what's going to happen and stuff. So education fund, kind of looking down through there at where we are, estimated revenue and those kinds of things. Projected cash balances at the end of this year will be about $1,030,412. Our projected basic grant is going to be about $10 million. And that is based upon an ADM of about 1,390 kids. Now, right now, numbers are looking really good. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to jinx it, but numbers are looking really pretty good right now. So we'll see once all the dust settles over the next week or so, and people start checking in, and people are leaving to go to other districts and stuff. We'll find out where we stand at. But miscellaneous revenue, and that can be from anything, interest, donations and things like that, 42,000 there. So we're at a total of about 11,072,412. Transferred operations funds, like I said, we can transfer up to 15% out of education into operations, and we've historically been doing about 1.5 million there. So our revenue in the education fund for appropriations going forward for this year will be about 9,572,412. At this point in time, what we are planning our budget around is about 9,250,000. So we will appropriate every bit of our revenue. And usually then what happens is when the Department of Local Government Finance works our budget, they'll come back and they'll cut it, and we'll have to meet that, whatever they cut us at. So operations fund. So like I said, this is kind of controlling all those different capital projects, bus transportation, bus replacement. So projected cash balance on December the 31st, 2021, it's going to be about $492,970. You can see there the different places that we get our revenue from: property taxes, license excise tax, commercial vehicle excise tax, and the financial institution tax. And so total, after all those different revenue streams come in, we would have about $4,278,000. And we have that transfer coming over from education fund to operations fund of 1.5 million. Now, you guys give us permission to transfer that much. It doesn't necessarily mean that we always transfer that 1.5 million. A lot of times it depends upon how healthy do we want our operations fund to look, or how healthy do we want our education fund to look. And so we kind of look at that as we get close to the end of the school year or into the calendar year to kind of make that decision of, do we want to continue to transfer that full amount over or not. So if we look at that total revenue that we would have as far as all sources, it would be 5,778,000. And as you can see, we're looking at approximate appropriations of 5,400,000. That's a little bit higher than what we got last year. So as I said a few moments ago, the Department of Local Government Finance, when they figure and work the budget, they usually come back and they say, well, this is all you're going to get. And so then we have to go back and we have to cut some things to kind of meet what they're saying we're going to get. Capital projects plan, of course, this is something that we have to put out there for our taxpayers, as well as our bus replacement plan. We are looking at doing some HVAC repair and replacement at North Elementary Cafeteria, as well as North Posey High School. We're looking at the big unit at the high school. North Elementary School playground renovations. We have some equipment that definitely needs to be replaced at North Elementary. We would really like for our playground at North Elementary to look like it does at South Terrace, and so we're getting pricing back on that. We're looking at getting pricing back on replacing all the first grade classroom furniture across the district, and begin kind of moving through the grade levels and replacing furniture to be more ergonomical for our students, and at the same time be more flexible for movement and things like that. We talked about North Elementary and South Terrace electronic signage. Of course, we're working with some individuals in the community that may also be willing to do some donations toward that as well. And of course, security upgrades at entrances and monitoring services. So we're looking at all of our doors. Some of our doors need to be replaced or upgraded to make sure that the contacts are correct and they're locking down appropriately, those types of things. And so definitely some upgrades there. So those are some things we're looking at as we go through this year with our capital projects plan. 2022 bus replacement plan, we're looking at this next year purchasing 3 72 passenger school buses. Because of some lower operations budgets over the past few years, we're a little bit behind on our bus replacement. The other thing that Michelle and I have been talking about is, and we're investigating right now, is the leasing of our school buses. Michelle, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, it's just very new conversations, but we've gotten some information from some other school systems that have moved to a lease option versus a purchase option on the school buses. The biggest benefit that we're looking at are parts and labor and the upkeep of those buses, the increased safety for students for riding in the newer buses that have more of those safety standards, and that is replaced on a 4-year basis rather than, the 10 or 15-year basis that we might be looking at now, and sometimes even longer, depending on, what the budget has for that. So we're looking at some cost analysis of, we rarely do much upgrade or upkeep on the buses at all in years 0 to 4. If not 0 to 8. And so that would reduce our costs in the maintenance in the garage, especially as we're going down to 1 mechanic. And it should keep us under warranty, for any major issues. And so we're gonna investigate it, bring back some information. It may be too costly, I don't know yet. But we thought it was worth at least a conversation to find out if that is something that's gonna be a cost benefit to increase safety, to increase the good stewards of our money, but then also to have buses that have better gas mileage and better services for the students. So.
What we have noticed is we're replacing all of our diesel buses with gasoline, and of course the diesel buses are just extremely costly to fix and repair. So a lot of times we're taking it down to Evansville for those components. And just like you've seen with your own personal cars, they're getting complicated. And the other thing too is when you trade in a bus anymore, you're getting $1,000 maybe.
$1,500 is what we got offered for 2 and $500 for 1.
Yeah.
So we're not getting anything back when we trade with them.
Are you far enough into this to know if we lease and we have some maintenance issues, where does that go to get the maintenance done? Is that to Evansville, or does it have to go to us further away? Are we going to be without buses for longer?
So the company that we're talking to is somebody we've been working with when we purchase our buses. And so that would be in that process, whether, we continue to go, we probably want to go out for RFP if we go down this route, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that would be a part of that conversation is how do they service? So the company we have been using actually has a mobile unit that comes to us. If it's a bigger issue, we take it. But they do have a mobile unit. They were out here yesterday with the buses, so.
Interesting. Okay.
So just an option we're looking at to see if we can get the best bang for our buck. So next page there is dealing with debt service. This is pretty well just cut and dry as far as what loans we have or what bonds we have and unreimbursed textbooks. We have 2 different debt services. Carol kind of calls it the debt payment with New Harmony. This is of course when New Harmony joined on with us. You see the different levels of revenue there: license excise tax, commercial vehicle excise tax, financial institutions tax, and then local property tax levy. So total revenue there was about $1,179,490. Appropriations, meaning what expenses we have, like I said, is the bond leases that we have, as well as the unreimbursed textbook. Comes to a total of about $882,274. Then our other debt service is kind of what we classify as our debt service. Once again, you have the 4 areas of revenue there: license excise tax, commercial vehicle excise tax, financial institutions tax, and local property tax, for a total revenue of about $500,422. And then we have just the bond leases that come out of that debt service at $493,000. The other fund, as I shared with you, is rainy day. I didn't put that in the presentation because rainy day is kind of one of those that we appropriate about $600,000 just in case we have an emergency that comes up. But you as a board has to approve those expenditures usually. So we bring that to you. And as I've shared with you in the past, I view that as being in our savings account. Those are usually one-time expenses. It's not something that we're going to continue to go back and hit on an ongoing basis. So
on the debt service, the way she's presenting it, Is that right, that we will have a couple $100,000 in excess potentially?
Yeah, so what mainly ends up happening is you really can't carry that much forward. It's
I didn't think so.
probably-
That's
yeah,
what I'm
so they'll
saying.
probably cut that when we actually.
So that'll probably be matched.
Yeah.
To,
Yeah.
to equal our debt service.
Yeah. Because
I hadn't seen it.
you had to ask me
presented
that, and
this
I know there's a percentage that you're able to hang on to, but it's not that big of a percent. So, yeah.
way. Okay. I really like this presentation this one.
Good question.
Yeah.
I like the
So-
budget.
I did
It's
too.
nice
That
to
was
have it all
so
laid
nice.
out.
I know, yeah.
I mean, we talk about it all the time, but.
Yeah.
nice to have
Especially
that
since
in
it changed after all those years. Yeah.
So we just need the board's permission tonight for us to be able to advertise that budget. And then next month you would have the public hearing, so.
Entertain a motion to approve permission to advertise.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and advertise the 2022 budget.
Who was the second? Vince?
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion by Mrs. Will, seconded by Mr. Oakley to approve the permission to publish the 2022 budget as presented by Mr. Galvin. Any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
If you ever have any questions about the budget, please let me know, and I'm more than happy to answer those for you. So, so to go forward with that. Underneath reports this evening, we have COVID-19 update. As some of our patrons expressed concerns this evening, what we mainly received was the Indiana Department of Health forwarded information to us from the Centers for Disease Control, as well as our Posey County Health Department has also been in conversations. And we met with Mount Vernon School District, as well as ourselves, and with Dr. Rapp from the Posey County Health Department, and began working on the recommendations from the CDC. It is our understanding in looking at those recommendations that those are suggestions or guidance that the CDC and the health department has presented to us. We've been poring over those as parents have come forward and expressed concerns about those, trying to figure out, you know, what is considered mandates, what are things that we have to do, and what are actual recommendations. And, you know, the terminology is very, very confusing, you know, as we've looked through stuff today and trying to process it throughout the situation. And I think as the parents have shared earlier this evening, the concern that we're seeing with a lot of the recommendations is that there's definitely a difference in how students are being treated and what's being recommended. The guidance from the DO or from the Indiana Department of Health is stating that there should be a difference between vaccinated students and unvaccinated students. That difference mainly being that underneath some of the guidance was that, you know, a vaccinated student does not necessarily have to be quarantined. Earlier on, the vaccinated student did not have to wear any type of a mask. And if they were a close contact, we would only just be watching for symptoms. And then at that time, we would take steps to quarantine them. The guidance from the CDC was that also if you were an unvaccinated student, that mainly that student would need to be quarantined if it were a close contact. And, you know, that was the extent of it. They were being held differently to a different standard and stuff. That was concerning to us. And especially as we looked at it more and went with that, I think that definitely has been more of a concern to us of how those two are being treated differently. The other concern that we've had too is that most recently guidance has changed with the current breakthroughs of the Delta variant and the Lambda variant, that vaccinated or unvaccinated kids should be wearing masks all the time. And now I think there's even some guidance out there too that's stating that if they are vaccinated, that they should be wearing masks inside as well. So as you can see, And this has been an ongoing, probably weekly change almost, or if not daily change. And been situations of where we've rolled out guidance to our parents, and within 45 minutes, unbeknownst to us, we get something from the Indiana Health Department or CDC, totally changing the situations. The concern that I have is last year we did a lot of things to make sure that we were in school. I have done a lot of research, and I'm very concerned about the social and emotional impacts on our kids. That's why I've hung with masks being optional, because I am not 100% convinced that masks are what is safest for our kids. So that's some concerns that I have. The other concern that I have is that if we follow the guidance from the CDC and the Indiana Department of Health, we would almost be segregating those kids who are not vaccinated. That is not what public education is for. Public education is there to make sure that all kids are treated equally and receive the same types of benefits in education. So that's what I kind of bring to you tonight is that I feel like that we need to go back and make some changes to our policies to make sure that our policies are being fair and equitable to all students, whether that be that all students are quarantined if they're in a place in that situation, which, like I said, we're now starting to see that kids who are even being vaccinated are experiencing some issues. But as we've said earlier this evening, I know that parents and students got their kids vaccinated so they didn't have to be quarantined. Another option, and like I said, I'm still investigating it. One district in northern Indiana has gone all the way to the point of saying it rests with the parents' decision of whether they quarantine or not. And that the school makes the phone call to the parents, shares with them what the situation is, and then the parent chooses whether they want to quarantine or not. That would probably not, well, I would say probably, that would definitely not be a recommendation that I think our Posey County Health Department would recommend. So my biggest thing is I want kids at school this year. And I don't want us to get back into this point of where we are quarantining huge groups of kids. If we follow the science, as you constantly hear on TV, we did not have a huge outbreak from kids being introduced to the virus at school. In most situations last year, the one or two cases that we could directly connect it back to school, it was almost a best friend situation. So they were engaged with each other, not only at school, but also outside the school. So unless this new variant, Delta variant, is totally different, which they're saying it is, but I've not seen it yet. At this point in time, I'm concerned about doing mass quarantine. So that's kind of where we're at, about as clear as mud. More or less.
I don't think anybody envies your guys' position. We talked back in June. We waited and waited and waited to publish a policy because we didn't know, but we had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I still go back and I commend everybody at this table. I felt like we did as good a job compared to anybody else in Southern Indiana to get our kids to have a normal school year and be in school. That's not going to change. We're going to do the same thing this year. We can't violate governor's mandates, but we can be choosy on how we roll this out.
And that's the biggest concern, right? Or the biggest question we have right now is that when the governor issued stuff back in July, the conversation was that it rested with local control. And that's the question is, what does that mean? Does that mean the local governing body as the school board? Does that mean the Posey County Health Department? Even some close counties and superintendents, friends of mine that I've spoken to, so that might rest with county commissioners. If the county commissioners can actually take steps and order us to do something, whatever it might be. So there's just a lot of questions about where it goes and how it goes. But, my thinking is at this point in time is that we have something in place, we get school rolling, and we make those changes as we go through. Because like I said, at this point in time, what I'm very concerned about is that there's a difference being treated between the two different groups. And I just don't think that that's something that, to me, that is a political issue. And I don't feel like that we need to be going into those political situations.
Absolutely not. So just for clarification and everybody here, we are not going to vary on the 5%, 10% rule.
Correct.
So
Yep.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so what we've said is that masks are optional at this point in time. We feel like that was a parent decision. Parents need to choose whether they want to send their child to school. If by some chance we get into school and we have data that supports that we are showing a 5% positive case for a school, then we might, and I say might, implement masks. If we hit the 10% threshold for a school or the district, then we might implement virtual instruction. So that's kind of where we're at with that, is that we have those things in place to where if we hit those percentages, then we would address it at that point in time. And I say might because you have to look at the situations, what's going on and stuff. So therefore, we feel like we still need to have that flexibility to look at the situation, to talk to the Posey County Health Department, and then to make those decisions of what's best. Last year we closed down, I think the high school maybe 3 weeks, and elementaries and junior high 1 week extra. And in both of those situations, it helped us to really reset, and I feel like kept us in school much longer than if we hadn't done those. So we'll make those assumptions or make those assessments as we move forward and stuff.
And I think that's important, that's per building, it's not corporation.
No.
We are going to treat the buildings separate.
Yeah.
And we treat junior high separate than the high school.
The only place that would get really tricky is with our elementary, because a lot of times your older kids will babysit your younger kids, and that's kind of where it gets kind of tricky at. So.
Well, I know that we have, and it does bother me that we have parents vaccinating their kids simply for the quarantine issue, and they're making that decision. So as soon as we can clarify that, I think it would be better for everybody. I know there's some parents that are vaccinating that are having a lot of angst vaccinating, but they're doing it because of the quarantine issue. So if we can help that out, we should.
Yeah.
But the community does have to understand. This is so fluid. Warwick County made a decision, then reversed it, and then between school board meetings. So, and we're not going to be able to do this only on school board meetings. This is going to be a daily on you guys type of a deal. But we appreciate what you've done, and I think we've shown that so many times people view us as being the follower of whatever Mount Vernon does, we're going to do, or whatever EVSC does, we're going to do, and that's not been the case. We have truly been made made our own decisions based on our corporation when we can. And I applaud you guys for doing that. Anybody else?
Any questions?
You said it.
I just think everything is so ever-changing. The virus is so ever-changing, and the things we hear from professionals is so ever-changing that we need to make sure our procedures are ever-changing too.
I think the one thing, was it Melissa?
Okay.
Melissa made the comment about the video today. I was watching that video from the school corporation up north, and one of the things that he said was that this is not going to go away. This is a virus. This is with us from here on. So the question becomes is how do we learn how to live with this? And how do we continue to go about our daily workings going to school, going to work, doing the things that we love, but the same within what's happening. And I think that's kind of where I'm at this year is that, we need to learn how to live with this and move on with it, so.
So I think you guys have a plan. We go with the plan and roll with it sometimes.
Like I said, there's things we need to tweak in it, so we're gonna go back in and tweak
It's gonna be
it, so.
ever-changing.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be ever changing.
So, kind of 2021, 2022 back to school update. We kicked off this morning with our teacher meetings. I felt like everyone's excited to be back. Everyone, the fear factor isn't there like it was last year, what was going to happen and stuff. We're still unsure of, how everything's going to roll out this year and stuff. But I think the schools look great. Our custodians did a fantastic job. I also want to thank Jerry and Bernie. They did a great job on getting our buses ready. We got those inspected last Friday. I think everything's good with that. Sonia Teal has come in and done a fantastic job on getting kids scheduled. Jamie's doing a great job on getting all the software and all the kids in and everything. Amy has done a fantastic job on human resources. I mean, we've had probably, I'd say almost upwards of 30 people.
Or upward to almost to 40.
40 new employees into the district. I know.
Speaking of fluid.
On a new system.
Yeah.
So anyway, so everybody has done a phenomenal job this year, and I just really appreciate all the work that everybody has done. This definitely shows you how a district comes together with community and support and make sure that our schools are ready for our kids to come back. So we're ready to roll tomorrow. Our buses are ready to roll, and we're ready to get those kids back in school. So, Michelle, you got anything you want to say?
I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for my kids' first day. So I'm a little nervous, mommy. But we'll get there.
There's a lot of those out there. So yeah, I'd like to send kudos, and we probably ought to send a thank you card or something formally, but to the County Highway Garage.
Yes. Actually, we're gonna go buy them pizza. That's what I think.
That'd be a great idea. That's been a pet peeve of mine for several years of High School Road.
Yep.
If anybody's not been on that, they completely redid High School Road. It looks like they widened it. They did not widen it, but they did put shoulders on, so it does look good. It's striped. It looks as good as they can do. And another kudos to the state for finally, they did the state road before school started and not waited till the weekend. Yeah, in years past, they would have fixed high school or the highway the first week of school. Fortunately, they listened to us, and at least this year, so thank you for that. But the roads look great.
Also, we need to reschedule the October board meeting because of the Indiana Association or Indiana School Board Association. So I think we decided on moving that to Tuesday at.
That was the question you did.
Okay. So you may have to have a short executive session that evening because you could be interviewing your North Posey principal candidate.
So we have to advertise that how far in advance?
Well, that is your budget hearing meeting. So it's not the part of advertising, it's the part that date and time goes on those budget documents, which goes into the budget hearing that you guys are having in the September meeting. It goes into everything she does that's printed on there. So it has to be decided before that happens. This isn't an advertising issue. This is a.
Well, I'm saying for the executive session, what?
The executive session, you could.
Oh, you
you're
can do
okay.
that at any time.
Yeah,
Well, we have
you gotta
a
set-
deadline. We have to advertise it so many, is it
It's like
24 hours?
72 hours.
Thank you.
72 hours?
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
72 hours. Yeah, that's 72 hours.
Okay,
But it's the regular meeting time and date that you have to set in stone tonight.
all right.
But your executive session, you can
You can do it
decide.
afterwards.
So that's the
We
day
can do
we're
it after
coming
the
home.
meeting.
That's the day we're coming home from Indy,
Yes.
from the state school board convention. We're typically home by 5, aren't we?
Your last session ends at
12:15,
12:15, so the only thing you'd be doing is eating, if we stopped someplace and ate lunch, and we'd be here. So we were figuring about 4.
And that's 12:15 their time.
Correct.
Yes.
So if I'm trying to say, hey,
We get here in time.
yeah, I would rather us not get here and then go home for an hour and then have to come back, that type of thing. So in view of that, if we could schedule, what are you thinking? I mean, can we start
4 o'clock.
can we do it at 4 o'clock? And if we have, is that to start executive session
at 4.
or is that to start the regular meeting at 4?
I would start earlier than 4, because if we got here earlier, then, well, then we can't do executive session, because you're saying we could have be interviewing.
No, so here's the thing. So if we do that, if we start at 4 and we have to have executive session, then we'll just have to make sure we're back. Then we just have to make sure that we advertise it, which we know 72 hours in advance that we're gonna have to interview.
Yeah.
So if we have to interview, we'll advertise 72 hours in advance, and we'll just make sure we're back by 3 o'clock our time. And if that means we have to leave the last session or eat on the road or whatever we have to do, we'll just do that.
I mean, there's nothing to say you can't have your executive session after your regular session either.
Yeah, but if we're interviewing and then that ends up being a recommendation the only thing we could do is we could break for executive session and come back in.
Yeah.
So we could do that,
Yeah.
but we can kind of control that schedule. If we need to be back by 3, we'll be back by 3 and we'll interview.
Okay, so we're gonna.
Are you guys fine with that?
4 o'clock.
So we'll start the regular meeting at 4 and then we'll, if we have to advertise, we will.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Anybody have anything for the good of the cause?
Ready for the year to start?
I think kids are excited.
Mine.
It's kind of a weird feeling.
It's very weird.
I'm kind of curious to see what tonight's going to be with having a senior getting ready to leave the door tomorrow morning. I don't know who's more anxious, my daughter or my wife.
Considering some of her Facebook posts, that's kind of what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
More anxious, your daughter or your wife?
Yeah. We'll see. All right. Nothing else? You entertain a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
So motion by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mrs. Will. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Too late for me to drive up on my own. Okay, I'm going.